The space station Unity hovered like a shining sentinel in the void, its immense structure spinning slowly, a silent witness to the gathering of the galaxy's most powerful beings. From its observation deck, the endless expanse of stars and distant nebulae stretched like a canvas of raw power. But it was the station itself that commanded attention. The rotating rings caught the light of nearby suns, their glimmers like a dance of light on polished steel, making it seem almost alive. The station's purpose was more than merely a hub for transportation. It was a place where the strongest military minds in the galaxy came to showcase their might. This year, however, Unity was hosting a summit with an unusual guest. Humanity had been invited for the first time. "I still think it was a mistake to invite them," muttered Vex, the Azui Empire's supreme admiral, as he adjusted his sleek, formal military attire. His skin shifted between the cold shades of blue and gray, reflecting his irritation. With 3 piercing eyes, he peered out of the station's observation window, watching the docking ships with a dismissive flicker in his gaze. "They're no match for us. What could they possibly have to show us?" Tora, the towering red-scaled leader of the Krell Dominion, stood beside him, her voice low and amused. "The Council voted. Rules say any species with FTL travel gets a seat at the table. The humans have had it for 30 years now." Her 4 massive shoulders tensed, the ridges on her back growing more pronounced as she shrugged. "It's their turn." "They're too primitive," Vex shot back, his voice thick with disdain. "Their ships are toys. How long do we have to endure this?" Mech, the insectoid chief strategist of the Hive Collective, clicked his mandibles, responding with his characteristic tactical superiority. "They can boast about whatever they like, but we know our superiority. No ship of theirs can even touch our technology." "Agreed," rumbled Grell, the stone-skinned general from the Stone Confederation. "Their primitive methods won't stand against a real attack." Pax, the thought admiral of the Lumina Concord, said nothing but gave a small, quiet smile. Her glowing eyes studied the others with a serene expression, her psychic powers reaching out to assess the room's energy, but her mind was already on the inevitable disappointment she would witness when Earth's contribution was revealed. The 5 alien leaders, the Council's military might, stood united in their belief that humanity had no place at this summit. Even the idea of Earth's military capabilities was laughable to them. The main doors of the chamber slid open, and the conversation came to an abrupt halt. A solitary figure entered the hall. Jack Reynolds, commander of Earth Sol System Defense Force, walked in with a quiet confidence. Unlike the elaborate and colorful uniforms of the alien leaders, his dark blue uniform was simple, utilitarian, designed for functionality, not show. His face bore no sign of arrogance, nor of uncertainty. It was calm, composed, focused. He didn't need to boast. His presence was enough. The station's AI announced his arrival, its voice reverberating across the chamber. "Commander Jack Reynolds of Earth, representative of the Sol System Defense Force." "Jack Reynolds," the AI continued, "Earth's representative for this historic summit." Vex's eyes narrowed, his posture stiffening. But the tension was interrupted as Tora leaned in. "Perhaps they've sent their best after all, but I still find it hard to believe they've got anything worth presenting." Jack nodded to the room, acknowledging the various alien leaders. "Thank you for the invitation. Earth is honored to join this historic summit." The alien leaders exchanged wary glances, the skepticism of their expressions unspoken but clear. Vex stepped forward first, towering over Jack by several feet. His voice echoed through the hall. "Commander Reynolds," Vex began, his tone clipped. "I am Supreme Admiral Vex of the Azui Empire. I must say, we were quite surprised when Earth was chosen to attend this summit. Surprises are, of course, part of the fun." Jack's voice was steady. "Good surprises make life interesting, Admiral." "Indeed." Vex did not smile. "But let us be clear. Humanity's presence here is curious. I'm sure your species has made some strides. But what could you possibly have to show us?" Jack simply returned Vex's gaze. "That, Admiral, remains to be seen." Tora, unable to let the subtle challenge slide, stepped forward. Her red scales gleamed under the station's light, her voice like a rumble of thunder as she mocked. "Tell me, Commander, do you feel overwhelmed? Or do you truly think that your contribution is worthy of consideration?" Jack remained unfazed, his voice steady. "I'm here to learn as much as to share." One by one, the other alien leaders introduced themselves, each with their own brand of dismissive superiority. Mech, with his insect-like features and calculating demeanor, spoke of his species' unmatched tactical drones. Grell, with his stone-like exterior, laughed at the mere thought of humans building anything that could withstand true combat, and Pax, whose mental powers allowed her to influence minds, smiled in quiet amusement, sensing nothing to fear from this newcomer species. As the alien leaders presented their powers, showcasing their advanced technologies, ships that could hide in the dark corners of space, weapons capable of cracking planets, drones that moved in perfect unison, Jack simply stood there, taking notes and nodding, his expression calm. Once the presentations were done, the room fell silent as the mediator, a featureless silvery being, spoke again, its voice steady and neutral. "Commander Reynolds, the Galactic Council now welcomes Earth's presentation." The moment of truth had arrived. Vex's lips curled into a tight smile. "Yes, human. Show us what your species has managed to cobble together." The room's eyes turned to Jack, who took a step forward, his gaze sweeping across the gathering. Instead of activating any holographic display, he simply stood there, surveying the room. His tone remained polite but confident. "Thank you for your impressive demonstrations," he said calmly. "Earth's contribution to this showcase is still on its way. It will arrive tomorrow morning." A murmur of surprise rippled through the council, quickly followed by mocking laughter. "Your ship is late." Mech clicked his mandibles in amusement. "I hope it's not a sign of what's to come." Jack smiled slightly. "Not late. Right on schedule. Some things are worth waiting for." Tora leaned forward. "Why not just show us a holographic image like everyone else?" Jack's smile remained. "We prefer real demonstrations over simulations. I hope you'll understand tomorrow." The alien leaders watched as Jack left the hall, murmurs and mocking chuckles filling the air behind him. None of them noticed the small, barely perceptible smile on Jack's face. As he walked down the corridor, Jack sent a quiet message from his wrist device. "Stage set. Bring her in." The boasting had ended. Now the real demonstration would begin. The hum of conversation faded as Vex, the Azui Admiral, stepped forward, activating the display pad on his wrist. The screen flickered to life, casting blue light over his sharp features as he began his presentation. "I present to you the Shadow Strike, the pride of the Azui fleet." The holographic display shifted, revealing a sleek, angular warship. Its dark surface seemed to shimmer and fade, disappearing from sight before reappearing in the light as if it were a phantom in space. "Adaptive camouflage," Vex explained, his tone filled with pride. "This ship can enter any system, deploy devastating weaponry, and leave without ever being detected. Our enemies never know what hit them." The crowd murmured in appreciative awe, and Vex allowed a small smile, his three eyes narrowing in satisfaction. His ship was a masterpiece of stealth, the ultimate predator. He looked over at Jack with a pointed glance, his voice dripping with subtle mockery, a necessary feature in a galaxy so full of, well, less advanced species. Jack nodded politely, making no sign of offense, his expression as steady as ever. Tora, the Krell Dominion's battle-hardened commander, took the stage next. Her heavy steps reverberated through the hall as she moved to the display pad, casting a glance at Jack before speaking. "What you see here," she began, her voice deep and commanding, "is the World Breaker, the largest battleship ever constructed by the Krell." The hologram switched and the room seemed to shrink as a colossal ship filled the display. Its enormous cannons, capable of shattering planets, were showcased, followed by a simulation of the ship firing at an uninhabited moon. The moon shattered into fragments, its destruction as spectacular as it was terrifying. "No fleet has ever withstood the World Breaker," Tora growled, her voice full of pride. "I trust your ship will not embarrass us by comparison." Jack remained silent, but his gaze flickered with curiosity, his fingers brushing lightly against the edge of his console. His calmness did not go unnoticed by the alien leaders. Mech, the Hive Collective's strategist, was next. His insectoid form scuttled toward the center of the room, his mandibles clicking in a rhythmic pattern. "You've seen firepower," he said with a sharp glint in his multifaceted eyes. "But what makes us truly unstoppable are our drones. The swarm cloud, my pride. Thousands of drone fighters, moving with perfect coordination." The screen changed, showing the swarm of drones, each moving in a flawless synchronized ballet. They converged on a target, annihilating it with surgical precision. Mech's antennae twitched with pleasure as the display showed the destruction. "There is no enemy we cannot overwhelm with this cloud." Rel, the general from the Stone Confederation, stepped forward with a low rumble that seemed to shake the room. His stone-like skin was a testament to his resilience. "And I present the Star Shield, the ultimate in defensive technology," he declared, his voice rich with satisfaction. The display now showed a ship surrounded by an impenetrable bubble of energy. The energy shield absorbed incoming fire from the simulation's weapons with ease, transforming each strike into harmless light before the bubble closed once more. "No weapon can break through our shields." Lastly, Pax, the Thought Admiral of the Lumina Concord, stood before the gathered assembly. Her delicate features, luminous and serene, gave little away, but her glowing eyes studied Jack intensely. She had remained silent throughout the others' presentations, observing, absorbing. Now, she spoke with a quiet confidence. "We do not rely on brute force," she began, her voice melodic, yet carrying an undercurrent of power. "We use the Mind Weaver to control our enemies. The fear we project into their minds causes them to surrender without a shot being fired." The screen displayed a simulation where a fleet of ships, frozen in fear, slowly turned and fled. "Our enemies don't even realize they're beaten before they give up." Each of the alien leaders finished their presentations with a flourish, turning their attention back to Jack, who remained silent, his expression unwavering. The room was thick with the expectation of a response, as the aliens waited to see if the human would be intimidated or impressed. But Jack, ever calm, stood still. His fingers lightly traced the edges of his console. The silence was heavy, but it was his turn now. The mediator's voice cut through the tension. "Commander Reynolds," it echoed, its tone neutral but carrying an unspoken weight, "Earth's contribution to this summit is now expected." For the briefest moment the room was silent. The 5 alien commanders looked at Jack, some with a barely concealed sense of superiority, others with curiosity, as though awaiting the inevitable disappointment. Jack's lips twitched upward slightly, but he did not allow himself to be baited into responding. "I appreciate your impressive demonstrations," Jack said, his voice calm, measured. "Earth's contribution will arrive tomorrow morning." A ripple of surprise passed through the room, followed by a murmur of laughter. Mech's mandibles clicked in what might have been mockery. "Your ship is late?" "No," Jack replied smoothly, his eyes glinting with quiet confidence. "It's right on schedule. Some things are worth waiting for." Tora leaned forward, her red scales shimmering. "Why not show us something now?" Her voice was playful but edged with challenge. "You've had all this time to prepare. I'm sure a diagram would suffice." Jack met her gaze unruffled. "We prefer real demonstrations over simulations," he replied simply. "Tomorrow, you will see it for yourselves." The alien commanders exchanged knowing glances. Vex raised his brow in disbelief, but his face betrayed no surprise. "We'll see, Commander. We'll see." As Jack left the chamber, the alien leaders gathered in small groups, their voices low but filled with skepticism. "Did you see his face?" Vex's voice was harsh, almost dismissive. "No reaction to our ships. If anything, he seemed unimpressed." Tora chuckled, her booming voice cutting through the murmurs. "Perhaps they've got nothing to show after all." Mech clicked his mandibles again, his insect-like eyes narrowing in thought. "Or perhaps They have something far greater in store for us. Pax remained quiet, her glowing eyes lost in thought. Or they simply want us to wait. As the conversation continued, none of them noticed the faint smile on Jack's lips as he walked down the corridor, fingers brushing against his wrist device. He'd played his part perfectly. The stage was set. The aliens might have overestimated their superiority, but tomorrow, the reality of humanity's power would be revealed. It was only a matter of time before the boasting stopped and the true test began. The room was filled with an uneasy energy as the alien commanders exchanged glances, their pride and confidence fading beneath the surface. Jack Reynolds stood apart, calm and unwavering, his expression unreadable. The 5 alien leaders who had previously shown off their ships with such grandiosity now watched him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion, their words carrying the weight of uncertainty beneath their bravado. Vex, still harboring his superior attitude, made a deliberate move toward Jack, his 3 eyes studying the human. "Tell us, Commander Reynolds," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "What does humanity truly have to offer, if it's not a warship of the caliber we've already witnessed?" Jack didn't flinch at the question. His gaze shifted from Vex's towering form to the others, watching their calculating eyes and tense postures. He was the calm center in a storm, perfectly aware of the cracks forming in their confidence. "Sometimes," Jack replied softly, "the greatest strength comes from the quietest moments." The alien leaders exchanged looks of confusion, their silence broken only by the soft whirring of the station's automated systems. Jack's words were simple, but there was a force behind them that could not be ignored. His calm demeanor was no accident. It was the calculated patience of someone who knew the game they were all playing. A soft chime rang through the room, the mediator's voice cutting through the tension. "A break is now in order. Please feel free to stretch your legs before we reconvene." The alien commanders scattered, some eager to discuss amongst themselves, others seeking solitude. Jack, however, remained where he was, hands clasped behind his back, as he stared out at the vast expanse beyond the station's windows. The stars were quiet tonight. Far too quiet, he thought. The calm before the storm. He didn't have to wait long. The familiar voice of Captain Lin crackled through his communication device. "Commander, we're ready on your mark." "Good," Jack replied, his voice as steady as ever. "Let's keep it that way. No mistakes." On the other side of the station, deep within the secure confines of Earth's war room, Captain Lin and her team of engineers monitored every aspect of the Leviathan's readiness. Every system, from the ship's stealth capabilities to its most advanced weaponry, was primed for the demonstration tomorrow. Jack knew that once the show began, there would be no turning back. As the break continued, Jack wandered the station, his footsteps silent against the polished floors. He had no interest in the idle chatter of the alien leaders. Their voices, once so filled with arrogance and superiority, now seemed distant and hollow to him. They didn't understand what was coming. Not yet. He thought back to the strategy he had devised, the alliance he intended to propose. It was brilliant in its simplicity, a play on the vulnerabilities he had so carefully studied. His people had learned the cost of isolation the hard way. The galaxy had watched Earth's struggles for centuries, and now it was time for humanity to take its place among the stars. But they would do so on their own terms. The 5 alien leaders had underestimated the quiet power of a species forged by endless conflict and the relentless pursuit of survival. They were too focused on their technology, their ships, their weapons, to see the truth. Jack's people didn't need to dominate. They simply needed to be seen. Jack turned down a quiet corridor where the walls were lined with shimmering plasma displays showing the Earth fleet status across multiple systems. His fingers danced across the controls, gliding over the smooth surfaces as he checked the coordinates one final time. The Leviathan was ready, the stakes had been set. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn that humanity's strength was not to be underestimated. As the break ended, Jack returned to the main chamber, finding the alien commanders already seated at their respective spots. The tension in the air had shifted, a subtle unease hanging between them all. Jack stood tall, his posture perfect, and prepared himself to play his next move. The mediator's voice again reverberated through the room. The council is now ready for the second round of presentations. Commander Reynolds, the floor is yours. Without a word, Jack stood, his calm composure unwavering. The alien leaders watched him carefully, their eyes now filled with the shadow of doubt, though none dared to acknowledge it openly. Jack's quiet confidence was like a silent promise, one that the aliens could not yet comprehend. He stepped forward, activating the laser plasma display at the center of the room. A map of the galaxy flashed to life, and Jack's voice filled the chamber. "I'm sure you've all had your fair share of impressive demonstrations," he began, his tone measured and deliberate. "But I believe there's one thing you all have failed to consider. What happens when something is underestimated?" His words hung in the air, thick with implication. The alien commanders exchanged skeptical glances, the subtle shift in their postures betraying their curiosity. Jack didn't acknowledge their doubt. Instead, he allowed the moment to stretch. His calculated silence was his greatest weapon. Vex shifted in his seat, clearly irritated by Jack's lack of direct response. "What are you suggesting, human?" he asked, his tone sharp. Jack's lips curled into the faintest of smiles. "Tomorrow," he said simply, "you'll see." The alien stared at him, unsure of how to respond. The power dynamics were slowly shifting, and they were beginning to realize that they might have overplayed their hand. Their arrogance, built on centuries of dominance, was starting to crack under the weight of Jack's calm assurance. As the room settled into uneasy silence, Jack turned to Captain Lin once more, his thoughts already on the next phase of his plan. The demonstration would be a turning point, and the outcome was already decided. The only question that remained was whether the aliens would be ready for what they were about to witness. The game had begun. The tension in the room reached a fever pitch as Jack Reynolds calmly activated the plasma display. The room, which had been filled with skeptical laughter and dismissive glances only hours earlier, now simmered with quiet anticipation. Each alien leader sat with their hands clenched, their eyes locked onto the small figure of Jack, whose composed demeanor only seemed to heighten their unease. "I'm sure you're all eager to see what humanity has brought to the table," Jack said, his voice steady. "I've heard a great deal about your vessels, your innovations. But today, you'll witness something that's different." He gave a subtle nod, and the holographic display flickered. A sweeping view of empty space appeared, the screen so large that the assembled council could see the stars fade into the distance. There was nothing at first. A quiet pause. And then, a shadow in the darkness. It moved slowly, but undeniably, growing larger, its outline visible against the backdrop of distant stars. The first alien to speak was Vex, his three eyes blinking rapidly as his voice faltered. "What? What is that?" The object drew closer, and the tension in the room shifted from curiosity to something far more tangible. The unknown was now a presence, a force approaching that demanded attention. Jack's calm words cut through the growing confusion. "This is the HSS Leviathan, our flagship. A ship that was constructed, not in years, but in moments of need." Vex's voice quivered slightly, and the rest of the commanders fell silent, all eyes now fixed on the screen. The massive warship was visible in all its glory, every line of its jagged hull accentuating its sheer enormity. The Leviathan was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. No sleek curves, no familiar lines of technology, but a looming presence forged from hard edges and cold angles. "Impossible," Tora muttered, her voice heavy with disbelief. "That ship. It can't be real." The Leviathan loomed on the display, its dark form swallowing light like a predator in the depths of space. The scale of the ship was beyond comprehension, dwarfing the vessels of the 5 alien powers. The display began to zoom in, and the sheer magnitude of the ship became evident. Its surface gleamed not with the shine of polished metal, but a matte black finish that absorbed the surrounding light. A colossal structure, built not with the elegant precision of the alien ships but with brute force, engineering, and speed. "Let me introduce you to the might of humanity," Jack said softly, and the words hit harder than any blast of weaponry. His tone was measured, but the weight of it sunk in. This was no boast, this was a challenge. The Leviathan moved effortlessly across the screen, its sleek, intimidating form casting a long shadow across the field of distant stars. The ship was closer now, its every contour visible in haunting detail. Massive engines hummed, but there was no trace of the mechanical hum the aliens had come to expect. Instead, there was only the quiet, inevitable advance of a force far beyond anything they had encountered. Tora, her posture now tense, leaned forward. "How did you manage such a ship? The resources required, the design. It doesn't make sense." "It was built inside the orbit of Jupiter," Jack replied. "The resources came from the asteroid belt. The design? It took 3 years." The silence that followed was thick. Mech's antennae twitched, his mandibles clicking as he struggled to grasp what he was seeing. 3 years? He repeated in disbelief. "Our drones take longer to build than that. The technology..." "How?" "Different priorities," Jack answered, his eyes not leaving the display. "We've spent centuries refining our ability to survive, to defend ourselves. This is the culmination of that drive." The alien commanders shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their earlier bravado quickly unraveling. They had all presented their ships, each a masterpiece of technology capable of unimaginable destruction. Yet here was humanity, with a single ship that dwarfed them all in every conceivable way. The Leviathan now moved into position on the display, ready for its first demonstration. Jack didn't need to give any further instructions. His calm presence had already conveyed everything that was required. He gestured to the display. "First, we'll demonstrate our stealth capabilities." The alien commanders watched in stunned silence as the Leviathan shimmered briefly, then vanished from the screen. It was as though the ship had simply ceased to exist, leaving only an empty expanse of space behind. "Where did it go?" Grell asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Jack remained unfazed, his hands clasped behind his back. "It's not gone. It's operating under full stealth protocols. We use a combination of light-bending technology, sensor dampening fields, and quantum phase shifting. Try to find it." For several minutes, the alien fleets attempted to track the Leviathan, their displays flashing with increasing frustration. But no matter what adjustments they made, no matter how advanced their technology, the ship remained undetectable. Their best efforts came up empty. Vex's 3 eyes darted across his own readings, trying to catch something, anything, that could explain what was happening. But the ship was gone. "Phase 1 complete," Jack said, his tone unwavering. "Captain Lin, Phase 2. At Jack's command, the Leviathan reappeared on the screen, its position completely altered, as though it had repositioned while remaining invisible. The alien leaders could hardly believe their eyes. "It's not cloaking," Jack explained. "It's moving while undetectable. In combat, that means we can reposition without enemy knowledge. We don't just disappear, we change the game." The realization began to settle in. This was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The aliens exchanged wary glances, the confidence they'd carried in their presentations now faltering. "Now," Jack continued, "let's demonstrate our fire." The screen shifted to show the Leviathan in a new light, rows of weapon ports extending from its hull. The display zoomed in on the massive kinetic railguns and plasma lance batteries, each a technological marvel. The weapons were enormous, their potential far beyond what the aliens had ever dared to imagine. Jack nodded to Captain Lin, who activated the ship's primary weapons system. The Leviathan fired, sending a volley of projectiles into the debris field. The explosions that followed were immediate and violent, each burst of energy vaporizing large sections of rock, leaving nothing but dust and vapor in its wake. The alien leaders stared in shock, unable to process what they were seeing. Tora, whose own battleship was renowned for its ability to crack planets open with a single shot, was now speechless. Jack's eyes flickered with the faintest hint of a smile. Kinetic impact rails, accelerating projectiles to nearly light speed. A single shot can obliterate anything in its path. The alien leaders sat motionless, their previous boasting now drowned out by the raw power on display. What could they say now? What could they do? The pride of their fleets, their carefully cultivated superiority was now shattered in mere moments. Mech, who had prided himself on the swarm of drones he commanded, watched as the Leviathan deployed its own swarm of combat drones. Thousands of small craft, each moving with perfect synchronization, tore through the debris field with unparalleled efficiency. This, Jack said, is only 20% of our full drone capacity. The aliens were stunned into silence. The proud fleets they had commanded, the vessels they had once boasted about, were now but relics compared to humanity's new weapon. And the demonstration had only just begun. The Leviathan loomed on the laser plasma display, its dark form casting a long shadow over the assembled alien fleets. The tension in the room was tangible, a palpable weight that grew with every passing second. Jack Reynolds stood before the gathered commanders, his posture calm, his voice steady, as if this were just another presentation in a long series of calculated moves. Yet beneath the surface there was an unmistakable undercurrent of something more, something that the aliens had failed to recognize. Now, I will demonstrate what makes humanity's technology stand apart, Jack said, the words carrying an almost casual weight, as though he were about to show something routine. The alien leaders exchanged uncertain glances. Their previous confidence had been shattered by the size of the Leviathan, but none of them were ready to concede defeat yet. The display flickered as Jack activated the ship's weaponry. The room fell silent as a new series of images appeared on the screen. The Leviathan shifted into position within a simulated debris field, its massive hull barely fitting in the frame of the plasma display. Let's begin with offensive capabilities, Jack continued, his voice calm, betraying no hint of arrogance. I'm sure you've all seen the kinds of weapons your own fleets can deploy. But this is something different. A moment later, the Leviathan fired. The display blurred as a massive energy pulse shot out from the ship, racing across the simulated space. The resulting explosion obliterated a section of debris, vaporizing it into nothingness. That's a plasma lance battery, Jack explained, his eyes scanning the stunned faces of the alien leaders. It's capable of cutting through any known hull material. Your ships wouldn't stand a chance. Tora, whose own fleet relied heavily on advanced planetary bombardment technology, remained silent for a moment. She was trying to reconcile what she had just seen with her own understanding of firepower. The Leviathan's weaponry wasn't just powerful, it was overwhelming. Let's move to the next demonstration, Jack said smoothly. Captain, deploy the drones. The Leviathan's bay doors opened, and thousands of small craft poured out, each moving with fluid precision, a collective swarm of machines acting in perfect harmony. The alien leaders watched in stunned silence as the drones shot through the debris field, each craft eliminating its target with surgical accuracy. The swarm wasn't just a display of numbers. It was a statement of humanity's tactical ingenuity. Each of these drones operates with full autonomy, Jack explained. They're programmed to make their own decisions based on the tactical landscape. You could deploy thousands of them, but none would act outside of the greater strategy. This is our next generation of autonomous warfare. Mech, whose drones had been the pride of the Hive Collective, clicked his mandibles nervously. Impossible, he muttered under his breath. His swarm of drones, although sophisticated, lacked the coordination that humanity's drones demonstrated. The precision, the synchronized movement, none of it made sense. Let's go on to defense, Jack said, pushing forward with his demonstrations. We've all seen the capabilities of your shields, I'm sure. The Star Shield can withstand most known attacks. But how do you deal with the threat that you can't see? How do you defend against something that strikes before you even know it's coming? The screen shifted, showing the Leviathan at the edge of the debris field. Jack activated its multi-layered defense grid. The first strike came. A massive chunk of rock, large enough to destroy a fleet, shot towards the ship. The alien commanders leaned forward in their seats, eyes fixed on the screen. The Leviathan's shields shimmered briefly, and the incoming asteroid was obliterated. But it wasn't just destroyed. The energy from the impact was absorbed and redirected, preventing any damage to the ship itself. All of our shields disintegrates incoming objects, Jack explained. The next layers deal with energy-based weapons, and the final shield handles direct impacts from large projectiles. This way we don't waste power. We use exactly what's necessary. Grell, who had boasted about his fleet's ability to withstand direct bombardment, clenched his fists in silence. His pride had always been in his ship's durability. And yet here was humanity with a system that had outpaced everything they had developed in a fraction of the time. Finally, let's discuss psychological warfare, Jack continued, his tone more serious. Your species, the Luminia, specialize in mental manipulation. You've used your mind-weaving technology to cause entire crews to abandon ships without firing a shot. Axe's glowing eyes flickered slightly at the mention of her species' unique abilities. The Lumininith had prided themselves on their subtlety, their ability to control the minds of others. It had always given them a distinct advantage. Until now. Here's the thing, Jack said, looking directly at Pax. We've developed countermeasures. While your mind-weaving technology is formidable, it won't work on us. The heads-up display shifted, showing the Leviathan's dampening field activating. Pax's expression shifted from intrigue to concern. She could feel a slight discomfort, a sensation of pressure, but nothing more. The Leviathan's systems are designed to neutralize any psychic influence, not just block it, neutralize it. We've been through too much to let an enemy attack our minds, and we've learned to adapt. Stunned silence settled over the room. The 5 alien leaders, who had once dismissed humanity as a primitive species, now understood the truth. What they had perceived as a minor, insignificant species had just demonstrated a technology capable of rendering their own fleets obsolete in a matter of moments. The balance of power had shifted. Nora was the first to speak, her voice low and measured. This is impossible. No species could advance this far in such a short time. The Leviathan? It's not just a warship, it's a statement? Jack nodded, his eyes scanning the room. We've spent centuries perfecting our technology, not just for offense but for survival. We've learned that the only way to ensure peace is to prepare for war. And we've prepared, in ways you haven't even begun to imagine. Vex's 3 eyes narrowed. What do you want from us, human? What does Earth want from the Council? Jack stood tall, his voice steady. Earth wants to join the Council, not as a subordinate, but as an equal. We're offering our technology, our expertise, and our strength. We don't seek to dominate, but to defend. And we offer this partnership to all of you. The room was filled with a tense silence. The 5 alien leaders, once so confident in their superiority, now found themselves questioning everything they had assumed about humanity. There was a respect in the air now, one that hadn't been there before. And as they processed the demonstrations, the full weight of the realization settled in. Humanity had come to stay. They had come to take their place at the table, not as outcasts, but as equals. The demonstrations were over. The power had shifted, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The silence in the room was heavy, the weight of the Leviathan's demonstration still lingering in the minds of the 5 alien commanders. They had witnessed a power they hadn't anticipated, and the realization of what humanity could bring to the table was sinking in. Jack Reynolds, standing at the center of the council chamber, remained calm, his demeanor unchanged by the obvious shift in the room's atmosphere. The mediator's silvery form loomed over the proceedings, its faceless presence exuding an air of neutrality. The vast display in front of them showed the Leviathan hovering just outside the station, an imposing monument to human ingenuity. Its dark silhouette against the distant stars both beautiful and terrifying. The alien leaders shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their previous arrogance faltering under the undeniable truth of what they had just witnessed. Jack glanced at the 5 alien commanders, his gaze steady but sharp. He knew this was the moment. the moment to stake his claim, to make the offer that would change the galaxy's balance of power. "Gentlemen," Jack's voice broke the tense silence, "what you've seen here today is not just a demonstration of technology. It's a declaration. Earth is not a passive participant in this galaxy. We are a force, and we are offering our strength in exchange for something far more valuable than any weapon we've demonstrated." Vex, the Azuvi admiral, shifted uneasily in his seat. His three eyes blinked in a rapid sequence, an expression of uncertainty that was difficult to read, but unmistakable in its confusion. He had been certain that humanity's presence at the summit was a mistake, an inconsequential footnote in the greater scale of galactic power. But the Leviathan had shattered that notion. "What exactly are you offering, Commander Reynolds?" Vex's voice was still authoritative, but there was a hint of something else, a cautious curiosity that hadn't been there before. Jack took a moment before responding, allowing the weight of the question to settle. "An alliance. Earth has the technological means to defend itself, but we recognize that survival isn't just about technology. It's about cooperation, unity. Our proposal is simple. We offer our military capabilities to the Galactic Council, not as conquerors, but as protectors. We will stand by you when the galaxy needs us. In exchange, we ask for your cooperation and protection. Humanity can contribute more than just weapons. Together, we can ensure that the peace you all enjoy today remains intact tomorrow." Tora, the battle master of the Krell Dominion, leaned forward, her red scales glinting in the light as her massive frame seemed to loom over the others. She was still processing what she had seen, trying to make sense of it. Her people were warriors, their strength forged in the fires of battle, and she had expected the same from Earth. But the Leviathan was different. It wasn't just another warship, it was a symbol of what humanity was capable of, a warning and an invitation in equal measure. "You propose an alliance?" Tora's voice was low, filled with skepticism. "And you expect us to trust you, after all we've seen, after everything we know about your violent history? Do you think we'll just forget?" Jack's expression remained neutral. "You misunderstand, Battlemaster. We don't want to erase history. We want to build a future. Earth's wars are behind us. Our focus now is survival and the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. We offer our strength in the hope that it will help preserve the peace you've worked so hard to build." The alien leaders exchanged wary glances. Mech, the insectoid chief strategist of the Hive Collective, clicked his mandibles in agitation. "You ask for trust, but trust is earned, not given. You're a species with a long history of conflict. How do we know that once you're in the fold, you won't turn that strength against us?" Jack didn't flinch. "You'll have oversight. Your fleets, your technologies, your cultures will be part of this alliance as much as ours. We don't seek control, we seek collaboration. The Leviathan is a symbol of Earth's commitment to that collaboration." Grill, the general of the Stone Confederation, rumbled deeply, his rocky exterior betraying nothing of what was surely a growing unease. "A partnership, then. But how can we be sure that your cooperation will extend to more than just your ships and weapons? What does Earth really want from us, Commander Reynolds?" Jack's gaze sharpened. "We want what every species wants: security. Earth's technology was born from necessity, from survival. But now, we understand that our survival depends on more than just our own strength. We need allies. We need the Galactic Council's wisdom, its resources, and its unity. In return, we offer our experience, our capabilities, and our willingness to protect this galaxy." The mediator, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Its voice was disembodied, the words resonating in the chamber. "The Council must deliberate on this proposal. It is a significant shift in the balance of power. We will vote." Tension rippled through the room. The weight of Jack's words had landed, but the true implications of his proposal hadn't fully settled with the Council yet. Earth, the newcomer to the stars, now sought a position of power. Not as a subordinate, but as an equal. And the Council's reaction to that would determine the future of the galaxy. The mediator's form shifted, its featureless visage turning toward the alien leaders. "Do any of you wish to speak before the vote?" Tora snorted. "What's left to say? He has made his offer and now we must decide if we'll accept it." Pax, who had remained quiet until now, spoke softly, her glowing eyes studying Jack with an intensity that hinted at a deeper understanding. "I believe him," she said, her voice almost reverent. "I sense no deception. Only resolve." Vex raised an eyebrow. "You trust him." "I trust what I felt when I encountered him. He's not like the others." Pax's eyes flickered toward Jack. "Humanity's history has made it hard to see them as anything but violent. But I don't think that's who they are anymore." The council chamber was filled with quiet murmurs, each leader processing the gravity of Pax's words. The Leviathan had shattered their preconceived notions about humanity's capabilities. Jack Reynolds had shown them not only advanced technology, but a level of patience and strategic insight that none of them had anticipated. After a long pause, the mediator spoke once more. "The vote will begin now. The future of the Galactic Council, and of Earth's place within it, hangs in the balance." Jack stood silently, his eyes fixed on the alien leaders. His mind raced through the possibilities, but he knew one thing for sure. Humanity had come to stay, and whether the Council accepted their offer or not, Earth had already earned its place among the stars. As the Council members voted, the tension in the air thickened. The future was uncertain. But one thing was clear. The galaxy was no longer the same as it had been before humanity arrived. And no matter the outcome, Earth had set its course for the stars. The vote continued, each decision echoing in the silence that followed. The chamber was still, an uneasy silence enveloping the council. The votes had been cast, and the results would soon be revealed. The 5 alien leaders sat in their seats, each of them brooding, as though the weight of the decision before them might collapse the very foundations of the galaxy they had built. Jack Reynolds stood at the center, his hands clasped behind his back, his posture resolute, but his mind racing. The mediator's figure remained central, its spectral form the only constant in the room as the floating heads-up display showed the tally of votes. The tension was tangible, a palpable pressure that seemed to press in from all sides. The silence stretched, each passing moment adding weight to the growing anticipation. The alien leaders had been on edge from the moment the Leviathan had made its debut, and now the council was about to decide whether humanity would be granted a permanent seat at the table or cast aside, left to fend for itself in the shadow of more ancient powers. Jack's gaze flickered toward the vote tally. The heads-up display revealed that the majority of the council had voted in favor of humanity's proposal, but there were still 2 factions that remained undecided, their votes hovering, uncommitted. He knew this moment was the culmination of everything Earth had worked for. But he also understood the fragility of it all. The weight of the Council's decision would determine more than just Earth's survival. It would shape the future of the galaxy itself. Humanity had presented its strength, its technologies, and its willingness to cooperate, but the alien leaders were still assessing the deeper implications of this new presence at their table. The mediator spoke, its voice flat and emotionless. "The vote is complete. The results are as follows. 3 members have agreed to the proposal, and 2 remain cautious." The voice didn't waver, but the tension in the room escalated. "The Council has voted to accept Earth as an equal member. Commander Reynolds, humanity now sits among the galactic powers." Jack exhaled, though he had known what the outcome would be. There was no true victory yet, only the beginning of the next challenge. He stood still for a moment, allowing the weight of the moment to settle. It wasn't a time for celebration. Not yet. Humanity's place in the galaxy was secured, but now came the real test. How would they navigate the complex web of intergalactic politics, and how long would their newfound position last? Vex was the first to speak, his 3 eyes narrowing, assessing Jack as though trying to determine if this was some elaborate ruse. "Your proposal is accepted, Commander, but I expect our cooperation to be tested." He sat back, his massive form seeming even more imposing as his words carried an undertone of warning. Do not mistake this alliance for a guarantee of peace. We will watch closely. Jack met his gaze unflinchingly, knowing that the true work of diplomacy had only just begun. We understand. We will prove our worth through actions, not words, he replied. Tora, on the other hand, looked less hostile and more contemplative. She was no stranger to battle, and the Leviathan's demonstration had shown her just how much humanity had grown. She respected strength, and Earth had shown it in abundance. I was wrong, she said, simply. Your species has earned its place here. Mech, ever the calculating strategist, seemed unbothered by the outcome, but not entirely satisfied. We shall see how your strength matches your ambition, he said, his insectoid form tapping the edge of the table with sharp chitinous claws. This will require careful observation. Pax, the only one who had spoken favorably of humanity from the outset, gave Jack a nod of respect. I believed in your sincerity, she said quietly, but I will not forget the complexities ahead. Your alliance has just begun. Let's ensure it remains beneficial for all. With the votes tallied and the room settling into a cautious new reality, the mediator spoke once more, its presence hovering above the council. The decision has been made. Now we must consider the next steps for humanity's role in the Galactic Council. We must determine how your fleets will be integrated, your technology shared, and how you will assist in maintaining the peace we've built. Jack nodded, acknowledging the challenge ahead. We understand. We're here to help, not dominate. Earth's military might is at your disposal, but it will be used with care. The Leviathan and our other fleets are ready to assist in securing galactic stability, but only if it is in the spirit of cooperation, not conquest. The alien leaders nodded, but Jack could see the skepticism still in their eyes. They had not yet fully accepted the idea of a human-led contribution to the galaxy's peace, despite the vote. The Leviathan had shown them humanity's power, but it had not yet convinced them of humanity's willingness to play by their rules. The warship had been an announcement, a statement of what Earth could do. But now the real negotiation would begin. I will call the first meeting of the new Galactic Alliance, the mediator said, its voice again carrying a somber tone. We will discuss the roles humanity will take in the upcoming galactic operations. Jack met the mediator's gaze. We'll be ready, but I'll remind you, humanity's place in the galaxy won't be defined by fear. It will be defined by trust, by cooperation. Vex's voice rumbled from across the room. We shall see if that trust can withstand the realities of the galaxy, Commander Reynolds. You've shown us your might, now show us your wisdom. The chamber remained silent as Jack's words settled in the air. It was a warning, perhaps. One last test before the galaxy's future was rewritten. Earth had made its entry onto the galactic stage, but it had not yet earned its permanent place. The Council, wary but impressed, would be watching every move humanity made from this point onward. Jack turned to Captain Lin, who had been standing quietly in the corner, overseeing the Leviathan's readiness. She gave him a small, approving nod. They had done it, for now Earth was an equal. But Jack knew that the true test was still ahead. The galaxy would not simply accept humanity. It would challenge them. We've earned our seat, Jack said quietly to Lin. But now we must prove that we belong here. This is only the beginning. With that, Jack turned back to the Council. The galaxy's eyes were on Earth now. Humanity had made its mark, but the true struggle, maintaining that place, was only just beginning. The mediator's voice echoed as the council members began to discuss the next steps. Humanity was in, but how long would it stay? Council Hall was silent as the last of the alien leaders departed. Their collective weight, their skepticism, arrogance, and now, reluctant respect, hung in the air long after they were gone. Jack Reynolds stood alone in the center of the chamber, his hands clasped behind his back. The massive display screens had gone dark, and the hum of the chamber's lights seemed almost too soft for a room that had witnessed such monumental decisions. Earth was no longer an outsider in the galaxy. It was something more, an equal, a force that could no longer be ignored. Yet, as Jack stood there, the magnitude of it all felt distant, muted by the future still ahead. Humanity's place in the Galactic Council was secure, but the path that had led them here seemed almost surreal in its simplicity. How could Earth, so long dismissed, now stand as a respected power among beings that had traversed the stars for millennia? The victory had been earned, yet Jack knew it wasn't the end. It was merely the beginning of something far more complex. He walked slowly to the edge of the room, staring out at the darkened sky beyond the Council's viewports. The stars, those countless points of light, seemed almost mockingly distant now, as though to remind him that this victory, as significant as it was, barely scratched the surface of what lay beyond. Still, Earth had arrived. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft hiss of the chamber doors sliding open. Jack turned, and there stood Vex, the three-eyed alien who had once been the most dismissive of humanity. The Shautari leader had lost none of his imposing presence, but there was something different in his posture now. No longer defiant, no longer the predator who looked down on humanity from a distant perch. There was a hesitance in his movements, a curiosity. "I had thought humanity would crumble under pressure," Vex said, his voice heavy with a mixture of respect and begrudging acknowledgement. "You have proven more resilient than I expected." Jack didn't smile, though the words warmed him. "We don't crumble, we adapt." Vex nodded slowly, his eyes narrowing in thought. "There are many in the Council who still doubt this alliance. Your presence here is unsettling to them. But I find myself curious to see how your species will fit into this cosmic puzzle. We have yet to see your true potential. I hope you don't disappoint us." The subtle challenge hung in the air, unspoken but felt. Jack knew that this moment, this quiet interaction, was more than just a greeting. It was the start of something new. The alien leaders were no longer dismissive, but neither were they fully trusting. The path forward would be delicate, filled with scrutiny and more tests. Before Jack could respond, Pax, the leader of the Kalir, approached with a more overtly diplomatic air. Unlike Vex, her manner was one of calculated civility, though Jack detected a quiet edge beneath her calm. "Commander Reynolds," she began, her voice smooth and deliberate, "you have earned your seat here, but your people will have to work harder to earn the respect of the entire Council. This partnership," she paused, considering her words carefully, "will require more than just strength. We must all be convinced of humanity's intent." Jack turned to her, meeting her gaze with steady resolve. "Our intent is simple: to ensure humanity's place in the galaxy is earned through action, not just words. We will prove ourselves, not only to you but to everyone who doubts us." She smiled faintly, her expression betraying the slightest hint of respect. "We shall see." The Leviathan was impressive. "But we will see what your people can do once the glitter of novelty fades." With that, she turned and left, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts once more. Her words echoed in his mind. The novelty would fade. In time, the Leviathan would be just another ship, and humanity would need to stand on its own merits. No matter how far they had come, the road ahead would be fraught with new challenges: political, military, and philosophical. There was no resting on their laurels. As Jack walked back toward the central command desk, Captain Lin entered. She offered him a glance full of quiet understanding, her eyes scanning the empty room. "It's over," she said softly, her voice almost reverent. "Earth has made its mark." Jack nodded, but his mind was already working. "It's over, but it's only just beginning." Lin's smile faded slightly, her expression mirroring his. "What do we do now?" He turned to her, locking eyes, his voice steady. "Now we prove that humanity belongs here. We show them that we can be more than a surprise. They need to see that we are ready to shape the future of the galaxy, not just be part of it." Lin was quiet for a long moment, considering the weight of his words. "You think they're ready for that?" she asked finally. Have to be. The council is split right now. Some see us as a tool, others as a threat, but in time they'll see that we are both. And when that happens, they'll understand just how far Earth is willing to go. Jack knew there was no turning back. The diplomatic minefield was laid out before them, and each move would need to be measured, calculated, and precise. The next phase of humanity's galactic journey was not one of sweeping victories, but of small, deliberate steps that would earn them a place not only at the table, but in the hearts and minds of the galaxy's powers. As he gazed once more at the viewports, the stars seemed less distant now. Humanity had proven itself, at least for today, but he knew the true test lay ahead. This victory, this moment of quiet triumph, was merely the first chapter. Now, the real work began. The weight of that truth settled on him. But there was also something else. Hope. Earth was in the galaxy's fold now. But would they stand the test of time, or would they become just another fading power? Only time would tell. But for the first time, Jack Reynolds felt that Earth had a chance. And that, in itself, was worth fighting for. The council hall was empty now, the final votes cast, the whispers of victory settling into a quiet hum of bureaucracy. Jack Reynolds stood alone in the dimmed chamber, staring at the empty seats of the Galactic Council. Humanity was no longer the overlooked outlier. The Leviathan, Earth's silent symbol of strength, had proven that. The technology, the technical brilliance, the sheer audacity of the humans, it had all shifted the balance of power. Earth had a seat now, a seat earned not with diplomacy alone, but with the unwavering conviction that they belonged among the stars. Still, as Jack stood there, the weight of the moment began to sink in. Earth had been accepted, yes, but acceptance, in the grand scheme of things, was a fleeting thing. The galaxy was not a place of peaceful coexistence. It was a landscape dotted with factions that never hesitated to challenge each other's dominance. A single vote did not change that. The doors to the council chamber slid open and Lynn stepped inside. She said nothing at first, just watched Jack, who remained unmoving in front of the panoramic view screen. The stars seemed distant from this perspective, cold and indifferent. The very same stars that had once been out of reach now felt like both a promise and a threat. Jack? She finally spoke, her voice soft but grounded in the weight of what they had just accomplished. We did it. He didn't turn to look at her. His eyes remained fixed on the cold expanse beyond the glass. We did, but this is just the start. She stepped forward, her boots clicking softly against the polished floor, her reflection in the glass joining his. What's next? Jack exhaled slowly. We prepare. The galaxy isn't a place that likes to be unsettled. Other factions, they'll feel the shift. They won't take kindly to what's happened here today. Lynn studied him for a moment, her face expressionless, before nodding, slowly. She understood. As much as the Leviathan had secured Earth's place, it hadn't silenced every voice that saw humanity as a new threat. The universe was vast and filled with histories that couldn't be rewritten in a single moment. Jack turned to her, finally breaking his gaze from the stars. His face, though tired, was resolute. We need to be ready, not just to defend ourselves, but to take our place in this new order. Humanity's not here to be just another cog. We've got to be the engine, Lynn. We have to outmaneuver them all. Lynn's expression softened, but there was a fire in her eyes. One that matched his. What about the others? She asked. The alien factions who voted for us. Can we trust them? Trust? Jack scoffed softly. We never trust. We work with them, for now, until they show us otherwise. A sudden chime interrupted the moment. Jack turned toward the nearby console, where a new message blinked on the heads-up display. A reminder that the council had finished the vote and that the next diplomatic session would begin shortly. The message wasn't important, but the timing was. The vote, the alliance. Everything was moving so fast now, as though the galaxy had been waiting for Earth to make a move, and now that they had, the consequences were already unfolding. Jack reached forward and accepted the transmission. The face of a familiar alien leader appeared, a member of the council who had spoken in favor of the alliance earlier. "Commander Reynolds," the alien said, his tone still stiff with formality. "We acknowledge your victory. You have proven your worth." But there was something else there, something unspoken, that lingered between the lines. The alien continued, "We look forward to negotiating the specifics of this newfound alliance, but I caution you, the galaxy is full of factions with histories that will not bend so easily. Your victory here today may be your first, but it will not be your last. You have made powerful enemies, and they will come for you." Jack listened carefully, his expression unreadable. "We're prepared," he replied, his tone steady. "You'll see. Earth doesn't back down." The transmission ended and Jack turned to Lynn, his gaze sharpening. "They're right. This isn't over. It's only begun." Lynn crossed her arms, her eyes flicking to the now empty council hall, to the flickering light of the plasma displays that had once carried messages of war and diplomacy. Now, they would carry Earth's voice. "But we're in the game now. That's what matters." "We're in the game," Jack echoed, though the words held a weight far heavier than before. The galaxy wasn't a playground. It was a battleground, one that Earth had just entered, and it wouldn't be long before they were tested. As they walked out of the council chamber together, the silence between them was filled with the quiet hum of anticipation. The Leviathan had proven its power, but that wasn't the end. It was the opening move, the foundation on which everything else would be built. Earth's future in the galaxy was no longer just a matter of hope or speculation. It was a reality. But Jack knew just as well as anyone that even the strongest foundation could be cracked. The universe was vast, and they had only begun to scratch the surface. Humanity's role in this new order would be hard-won, and Jack would be the first to tell you that no victory in this galaxy ever came easily. The galaxy had been watching Earth for a long time, and now they would watch closely, testing, challenging, waiting to see if humanity could truly stand alongside the powers that had held dominion over the stars for so long. As Jack and Lynn made their way down the long hallway, the soft steps of their boots echoing against the metal floors, Jack's thoughts drifted back to the Leviathan, the ship that had turned the tide. It was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of humanity's potential, their ability to adapt, to learn, to overcome. And that, he thought, was what would carry them forward. Not just strength, but the will to rise. They reached the elevator, and as the doors slid open, Jack glanced over his shoulder one last time at the council hall. The light from the corridor stretched out before him, but it was dim, shadowed, as though the path ahead was still unclear. "We'll need to be ready," Jack said quietly. "We will," Lynn replied. The doors closed and the journey ahead began.